Time now for our next virtual fireside chat. My guest is Alexandra Montgomery, who's Vice President of I.T, Digital and Innovation at Sodexo, and we're talking about a collaborative approach to automation. Hi, Alexandra, thanks for joining us.
Hi, it's so nice to be here today to hopefully share what I think are some great insights and experience that we've learned as it relates to RPA and a collaborative approach.
Absolutely, yeah. So, pleasure to speak to you. Let's get straight into it. I mean, could you, first of all, go into a bit about what RPA is for those who might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, so RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation. And really what that means then is it's a technology that uses software or bots to automate repetitive and rule-based tasks. So these bots can mimic human interactions with digital systems such as entering data, performing calculations, and then triggering responses. So for example, in my world, a process that we could use this for is creating new user accounts, deprovisioning access, something that involves the same steps every time.
So what are some of the benefits, the real world benefits that you can see from implementing RPA?
Yeah, so some of the stuff that we've already noticed is the increased efficiency, of course, because the bots can perform those tasks much faster than humans. Cost savings, of course, is another big one. You know, there's a cost to implement, but you see the indirect savings afterwards because by automating those repetitive tasks, organizations can then save from manual labor and then free up human resources for more value-added activities as well. And then I would say the other couple big ones that we've noticed is the improved accuracy. So a lot of companies, of course, are now really data focused, and we've found that using RPA helps eliminate those errors from the manual input, of course, and then allowing for the accurate data processing. And then the scalability. So it really will allow organizations to scale their automation and the efforts that go with that to increase workloads without significant resources being added as well.
So when we talk about a collaborative approach to RPA, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's really the two working together, right? Humans and bots. And you know, in our world, in our organization, we definitely see that they have to work together. So what we mean by that is, you know, the bots and our human workers, our employees, to really achieve a more efficient and effective automation process, they have to go hand in hand. And so it's really that collaboration and cooperation between and leveraging the strengths of each. So we never want to replace our employees or our colleagues, but instead we want to aim to leverage what is the strength from the bot, or maybe the knowledge from how that role was previously done, and then really reimagine what does that look like for the future. And we've been fortunate that our colleagues have welcomed this change because they see the value in upskilling their capabilities. You know, they're performing now more meaningful work. And I think it's really important in order for RPA to be successful in an organization that you really dig deep within your teams and see, you know, what do they do on like a daily basis that maybe it's always been done just because and like they were told to do it, but by having those conversations and allowing their voice to be heard, you can bring both the process automation through RPA and then the skill set of your employees together to really improve and enhance that digital transformation within your organization as well.
Fantastic. So when you're looking at, when you are working with RPA, how are you using RPA in your industry to really make use of the benefits?
Yeah, so the way we're using it within our industry is, you know, I think it can actually really be applied throughout many other industries as well, because we focus first on HR, finance, and operations. And, you know, sort of how I described before is we really listen to those team members to see, okay, what is it that that you're doing that's on a repetitive basis. And so if I think of some examples, so human resources, they're automating employee onboarding, payroll processing. So then the HR representatives can then concentrate on talent acquisition, those one-on-one conversations instead as well. And then, finance, that's a big one, right? As you can, imagine right now, it's a lot of repetitive data entry. So a lot of opportunity when you think of like invoicing. And then again, you're shifting those original roles and responsibilities and reimagining what those roles should be and sort of changing it so that now those employees are focused on more complex pieces of their work, I would say.
When we're thinking about this collaborative approach with RPA, this idea of balancing robots and humans, what are some of the main benefits to taking that collaborative approach?
Yeah, so I would say the main benefits are definitely improved productivity that I mentioned, enhanced accuracy, of course, and then employee empowerment as an indirect result, right? So I've also sort of touched on this, but by automating those mundane tasks, employees can engage in more challenging and meaningful work. And we've seen that lead to an increased higher job satisfaction as well. And then I would say the flexibility and adaptability from RPA. So those processes now can be easily modified or reconfigured to accommodate those changing business requirements as well. And then ultimately lead your organization to be more agile, of course.
And of course, keeping employees more engaged. What sort of benefits to that? Can doing that, keeping employees more engaged, what benefits can that provide businesses?
So I think when it comes to keeping employees more engaged, I think the important part here is speaking with those employees first and getting that buy-in up front. So you start with projects that maybe have like different departments would get excited about, right? And I think instead of it coming from top down and IT saying, hey, we're going to do this, or we've observed this and we're going to implement that, what we've found success in is you really need to listen to those teams or those departments, and then that's where you'll get the biggest buy-in as well. And then I think naturally everything will start to come from that because you've gotten that excitement, and it should be genuine, right? Again, when it's top down, often it lacks authenticity and that feeling of being genuine in what you're trying to solve. And employees see that. So I think the more you're getting people excited about technology and that digital transformation, then the more success you're going to find as well. And that's definitely part of it being a big benefit.
Of course, you highlighted one of them here, but what are some of the considerations that businesses should think about before starting a project with RPA, and what are some of the limitations as well?
Yeah, so I would say, sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yes, of course. Yeah, what are some of the considerations businesses should think about when implementing RPA?
Yeah, so I would think you want to make sure that you're leveraging those human skills that I mentioned and that expertise. You also want to make sure that you discuss factors such as change management, employee training that's going to come with this, maintaining the right balance between automation and human involvement. What are the expectations of the bot and what are the expectations of your employees still? And are those aligned? Is there that true understanding of what the technology is going to solve, and then how quick that's going to be implemented, maybe the hiccups along the way, of course. Ensure the vision is clear between the department, but all users. I think sometimes we often forget there can be multiple users within whether it's a task or a job that's being done. So I think, taking a step back and seeing what is each user and what is their role with the bot as well. Do they need to just know about it? Do they need to know who to contact if maybe the bot fails? Or is it replacing, a part of their role, right? So I think that's also important. And then I think something we find always most critical with any of our project is starting with a process mapping session. what does that current work and process look like, and then use that map for your initial journey and phase approach. Maybe you have multiple phases for implementing this, and then once people are comfortable, you'll start to naturally get that more ideas flow and generating more ideas for future implementations too.
So what do you think are some of the emerging trends that you see relating to RPA and how it might impact work, the potential of the future of work?
Yeah, so we definitely see this because in the industry that we're in is home care, so very closely linked to healthcare. So where we're seeing it pick up is, prior to the pandemic, our industry was a bit slow to move in a digital first way. And so now you're seeing them leverage RPA for claims processing, appointment scheduling, data entry, and along goes the same lines with government, right? Those businesses that I think we once considered very slow moving, I'm quickly, sort of hearing and picking up conversations of how they're progressing with their digital transformation and leveraging tools like RPA. So I think you're going to, people are, if they're not already seeing it, they're definitely going to see that, within a year. I would say we're starting to see bots and AI merge as well together in order to complete more complex tasks. So what I've described today, is a lot more, I would say, the basics of what a bot can do. But when those two merge together, RPA and AI, you're going to see the result in a transformation in many industries where it's going to be able to process more complex use cases and dynamic abilities. And then I would say too, if I just think like in my own personal experience, and some people listening today may already notice as well, but the work of RPA is being done with our credit card and airline companies. Anywhere a customer service request has previously been considered maybe like a level 1 or 2 in their industries, those are now being automated through RPA. And the complex cases are getting assigned to the person of the airline or credit card company. And then I think lastly too, and I sort of touched on this, is like we're really, because of the collaborative approach, we're really going to start to see that blended workforce between bots and humans. And I mean, especially with the fight for the hourly worker, right? So it just won't be one project here or there within an organization. It will be fully intertwined throughout. And, just like data was a big buzzword, I think RPA is naturally going to go hand in hand with that because of the opportunity together the two have in leading into a broader digital transformation journey.
You highlighted there about AI. Just purely, we'd love to dig into that. How do you see that working with RPA in the future? What do you see those two technologies working with each other?
So if I even look at our own, the industry that I'm in with home care. So what happens today is you have a caregiver that goes into the home. Large opportunity because, as I mentioned in the past, it's a very manual experience. So where I see AI and a bot coming together is maybe like automating those scheduling and like the better match criteria that can happen there, but then taking it a step further. And maybe when that caregiver is in the home, some sort of automated task list of prompts of what they maybe should do today. And some of that definitely happens, but it's not a proactive response, right? So I think in my industry, I see it becoming much more proactive and prompt based versus, the standard, oh, this is what I'm doing today. Check, right? And then maybe I think, in the other industries, of course, I'll use the airlines too, right? And just recently I had to submit a claim for a flight delay and, I'm getting that basic auto-generated response. In the future, I think, it's going to be able to go into a little bit more detail back and forth with the customer instead of just that one line, because every case is different, right, in those situations. And so I think, by leveraging those two, you're going to just see a little bit of like more of a shift in the way customer service responses were once handled as well.
When you're looking at implementing these sorts of technologies, RPA in this case, when there is resistance to technology, resistance to adopting technology from employees, how at Sodexo do you deal with that? Do you sort of overcome that issue?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think when there's resistance, the best way is to, make sure you're capturing, okay, what is that resistance that is being voiced or experienced, and sort of making sure that we're digging deep to it. Is it because it truly isn't going to work? Is it because a lack of understanding? Is it because there was miscommunication within our team or, between departments? And then I think the more you can make sure that you are clearing up that communication and confusion, the less scary it becomes. I think the one thing too is, people are afraid often of what they don't know. And once you can make sure, again, it's, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. It's reimagining roles. We're not looking to eliminate roles. We really aren't. In our implementations within our organization, not once has one role been reduced. Instead, if anything, these people have upskilled and now their titles have changed. So I think it's using those examples to showcase within our organization. And I even think back when we first implemented going with e-signatures. That was such a big lift and, scary at that time. And that was probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So I think it's just figuring out maybe what is the motivator, and then helping, others understand with examples that are like true to their department, or maybe like with real life as well is always helpful too.
So when after this implementing of RPA, what are some of the benefits you've seen specifically as an organization? Perhaps a couple of examples for people, the benefits that you've actually seen.
Yeah, so definitely within the finance department, of course, because those benefits are very easy to see because, again, my examples before were, the data processing, the manual input, maybe the lack of carpal tunnel possibly, and someone, clicking a mouse 100 times, right? And then I would say the ability for people also to trust more because if I use employee onboarding or offboarding, because that is now automated, it's a very easy way to audit after of what possibly went wrong. And it really increases accountability and then transparency as well in that experience.
And when you're adopting these technologies, RPA, we covered a little bit of AI as well. How do you keep momentum after you implement these big game-changing technologies and continue to find new opportunities going forward?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say showcasing them. There's always opportunity, but maybe even just taking a pause and then sort of doing like a topography and then maybe drilling in to see what are some other opportunities. I mean, we're also really fortunate within our teams that there's meetings where IT gets to join to listen in, and that's really beneficial to us because let's say it's with operations. They have these every month, and we then get to hear directly from operations instead of it being sort of like more of a one-on-one interview, it's a conversation that's naturally shared between their own team. And then we kind of listen to hear, okay, what's not working? Where can, technology help? And then bring that back to them as well as sort of like a starting point sometimes too for conversation.
Fantastic. Alexandra, I've got a couple of questions from the audience, which we've
Yeah.
covered a little bit about. One of them, generally employees are afraid of cooperation when it comes to automating their tasks. How do you engage and convince them? I know we've covered a little bit about that, but anything you can expand upon then, anything that other organizations can do?
Yeah, I also would say surveys and creating it almost in like a gamification. So something else is maybe like, as a company, make it a company-wide initiative, and maybe it doesn't have to be like specific to RPA, right? But call it something, simplify my day. Right? Work with your marketing team, figure something that's like kind of sticky, but that maybe then in your next fiscal year or midway through, and then you gather and you bubble up all of those ideas, and maybe some are going to be really great, maybe some not so much, but you'll really start to like peel back those layers and, you know, hopefully identify. So I would say, yeah, surveys and any sort of maybe like gamification that you could make of it as well.
And I've got another comment asking to just discuss a bit about the difference between RPA and AI. Of course, we've talked a little bit about AI, but when it comes to looking at these technologies, how as a business do you work with the possibilities of AI, the possibilities of RPA, and have a plan going forward, I suppose?
Yeah, so I would say RPA is, if you think of it, more of a structured input logic. And then AI is going to develop its own logic. So that's where, when I had mentioned like the more complex capabilities of those two working together, AI will be able to, you know, take it that one step further, because it's going to figure out quicker than the RPA would, because, you know, it's taking that that approach or those steps that we've told it to. I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. Alexandra, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. It's
Yeah,
been
no,
really
thank
interesting
you. It was great.